This is good. We're getting a lot of people on before 10 o'clock even. Oop, just turned 10. Hey, Josh.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, Chris. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Yeah, welcome. Good to have you.
Congratulations, I think, on your new responsibility.
But I don't want to spoil the fun, so I'm gonna wait till we get to the eagle part. But I'm enjoying it for now. I'll say that.
So Chris, have you always had a beard, or is that a COVID thing like mine?
I think I started growing the beard about 10 years ago, actually. So, my hair started thinning on top, and I still needed something going on. So, the facial hair is just sort of the migration of hair.
I understand. Yeah.
Gravity.
Yeah.
I was going to shave the rest of this off after my first shot, but it really helps me think. There's something about the nerve endings down here stimulate the brain or something.
This also looks just kind of weird, when you're thinking like that.
Yeah, that's good. We'll give it a couple more minutes here. All right. This looks like we have enough. Welcome, everyone, to the September CARD meeting. This is a quarterly CARD meeting with more Eagle people present. And we have a big agenda today. I'm Roger Rayle, Chair of CARD and Chair of SAR Residents for Safe Water. And as of this month, I'm beginning my 31st year as a citizen volunteer watching over this Gelman dioxane site. So this meeting is being recorded. It will be up on YouTube later. If you don't want it, if there's something you want to say, either say it to yourself or let us know that you want to say something, and we can cut the audio or video portion out later. It takes a little work to do that, so I'd rather that everything that I have a belief that if enough people have all the information, the right thing will happen. So that's why we record these meetings, and it helps new people get caught up because they can go back and look at the old videos and watch it in faster time and read the transcript and yeah. So I'm gonna if you're new to the well, a lot of you are been on screen before, but for the new people that are on, if first time you speak, if you identify yourself and what your role is for the new people, I think that would be helpful. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth first to talk about the minutes. Let me bring up the screen here.
Thank you, Roger. I'm Beth Collins, the CARD secretary, and the minutes are...
No, this is the agenda. Oops, that's not it. What happened to it? Oh, I think I shared the wrong one. Hold on, my bad.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
moved.
moved.
Just a second. Let me bring it up.
Or any changes to the minutes? That's true.
Let me bring it up. So there's their agenda, and here are the minutes.
So we have a motion. We need a second.
Second.
Are there any amendments proposed?
Yeah, I have one, and that is, and I don't want to spend very much time on it, but it's regarding the paragraph regarding action by Scioto Township regarding the Knights of Columbus property. I can't see the screen in front of me, but it mentions that mentions that that petitioners are bypassing the planning commission and having to appear before township trustees. What actually happened was the planning commission recommended denial of the project, but they still have the right to appear before the planning commission. So I don't know what language you want to make and changes with respect to that, Beth. I'll let you work on that, but that was probably the distinction I would make.
Okay, let
Is
me,
that clear, Beth, or do you need it typed into the chat?
well, I might ask you again. I'm pulling up my minutes, the one I can change it in. Okay. Tell me again, Knights of Columbus property. So what are they doing? They're not bypassing the planning commission.
They were denied by the planning commission and they were appearing before the South Township Board of Trustees.
Okay, denied by the planning commission. I just changed that word from bypassing to denied by the planning commission, who was requesting more data before approving or denying. No, I guess I need to get rid of that. But are going straight on to, okay, I do know what's happening. But going straight on to trustee meeting.
Correct.
Township trustee.
This is one of the beauties of using Google Docs for this. You can
Or
see the
approval.
changes in real time.
Yeah, okay, so did that sound good then for
Yes.
everybody? Okay. And then is there anyone else with any changes to be made or anything? Okay, so all in favor of approving these?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Speak up. No? Okay, great. Thanks for that, James. And the minutes are approved. As changed.
Okay, next we go on to the rest of the meeting, and Jack Eaton, our executive director, will take over from this point.
Just a moment. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jack Eaton. I'm the executive director of CARD. And before we jump into the agenda, because Nuria is having some technical difficulties, I just wanted to mention that Roger and I sat down with the new director of EGLE, Phil Ruse, and had a nice productive chat. And I expect that Roger will go into more detail in his portion of the agenda. It was
actually, Jack, I think when that point on the agenda, I think I want your input too, because two heads are better than one.
I'll still be here. Yeah. Okay, is Nuria back on? Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, thanks, Jack. I'm on here. I asked to be on here about a specific topic, but it was actually sort of like a general thing I wanted to say about it. And I don't, this is a long meeting, and I don't have to be heard at this one since we're approving the agenda. I mean, I know we have a lot going on here today, so you can see what my topic was about, but it was generally speaking to other items that happen in our community that may or may not affect this site, and I would just want to, maybe I would be better off sending a letter to everybody at CARD and saying what my ideas were about staying aware of these things.
Well, when we get to that point in the agenda, if you're still here,
I'll just be real brief. Yeah.
We'll let you decide if you want to speak.
All right. Thanks.
So is Nuria back online?
Yes.
Do you have any updates for CARD? She had messaged me that she was having difficulty hearing us and that she was going to jump off and back on, and it's quite possible that she can't hear us even yet. In the meantime, is there anyone from Congresswoman Debbie Dingell's office here today?
We got a message that Georgia was going to be in flight, and she apologized for not being able to make the meeting.
This is going to go pretty quickly then. And I don't see Dan Bicknell as well. So if and when Nuria hops on and has full capacity to participate, we'll go to her, but I'm going to move right along. So let's move to item 4, the Eagle update. Chris, did you want to lead us through this?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Thanks for that, Jack. And for those of you that might not know me, my name is Chris Svoboda. I've been with Eagle for a couple years. When I was hired on, I joined the Gelman project team. And so just addressing 4A, at this moment, I am the Gelman project manager. However, that is sort of a indefinite and interim assignment. I know that we are looking for a new project manager. However, the sort of timelines and actions to get us there are a little bit above my head. So in the meantime, I'll be taking care of things. And then, once we do get a new project manager, I'll be sort of going back to my previous role as the geologist that helped with technical components of the Gelman project. So I'll just move on down to item B. I see Washtenaw County Health Department and Eagle Homeowner well sampling. As of today, we have completed our fiscal year 2023 sampling. I believe Roger is probably going to bring up a map that Washtenaw County produced showing sort of the results. This is sort of an aggregate of Eagles sampling as well as that completed by SIO and Ann Arbor Charter Townships.
So Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, all right.
Before we move forward with yours, Nuria is connected now, and she has a brief update to give us.
Please, after you, Nuria.
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, so it will be a quick update. We have two things to report. One is we have finally the revisions from Weston. We had received comments from our counterparts in Eagle, delayed schedule unfortunately, and we just received the revisions. So this is for the SI report. We have to do another internal review and check in with our counterparts, and hopefully we will be distributing the SI report soon. And I don't want to give a date, but a couple of weeks, I would think. The other thing to know is that EPA, as we mentioned last time, intends to do another round of sampling. We want to collect groundwater sampling off property, and a lot of them are Gelman-owned sites. Some of them are residential wells, and so we will intend to be there next week, so the week of September 11th. So we are in the process of getting geared for that. So those are the two updates I have for today.
Thank you very much. I don't see any hands up, so I think we're going to move back to the Eagle update. Thanks again for attending. Go ahead, Chris.
Great, thank you. So yeah, as I was saying, Washtenaw County produced this map. This is sort of an aggregate of the last couple years of activity on the residential sampling. Basically, as you can sort of see here, we don't really have anything above our criteria or even actionable levels in our consent judgment with Gelman, except for the one detection on Blueberry that was never confirmed. However, we are taking these results into consideration as we develop our fiscal year 2024 sampling plan. That's in the works right now. Unfortunately, I don't have anything concrete to offer at this point. They're still in the planning stages there, but we are working with the currently known detections as our sort of orientation for the next fiscal year. So for item C, Eagle has provided CARD and a few others with a Eastern Area Groundwater Monitoring proposal from Gelman. This was proposed by them to alter and or reduce the sampling frequency in wells in the eastern area. Now, because this isn't a work plan under Part 201, we don't have the typical timelines for public comment. However, we did want to present this and gather any public comments that you did have. So we're allowing 30 days. That is based on essentially our timeline to respond to Gelman. There had been some discussion of an in-person meeting or sort of a verbal dialogue surrounding this work plan. At this point, I'm not so sure if we're going to be able to make that happen. Furthermore, part of the public comment is to get those public comments into the record. And as such, we'll need those comments in writing. So I would ask that if you do have technical comments about that work plan, please do submit them in writing. The deadline that we've assigned is September 29th at midnight. That's a Friday. So, if you're thinking about it over the weekend and you submit comments over that weekend, they'll still be considered. But as of Monday, the 2nd of October, that's sort of when we'll be through with adding public comments to the record. So we do hope to hear from you on that. And like I said, we'll consider any technical comments on that plan in our determination that we provide to Gelman. Item 4D is just, are there other monitoring plans? And the short answer to that is no. We don't have anything else in the hopper as far as monitoring plans in the consent judgment. I will mention bullet point F, the GSI work plan for the Allen Creek drain system. So in the past, Eagle had provided comment to Gelman on both the eastern area and the western area GSI work plans. We never really got any response, and I think part of that was in part due to the appeals court decision vacating the previous fourth amended consent judgment, and then when that was put into the record in May, it sort of restarted the clock on that. So we do have plans to check in with Gelman about our responses, and we may resend our comments to them, but unfortunately we don't really have any updates aside from the fact that Gelman is collecting some data in the western area, and our comments in the western area had just been around the sampling frequency and the number of samples that they were taking. So we'll see if they're taking that into account, but unfortunately don't really have any updates there. The eastern area groundwater monitoring, the homeowner well sampling, and then obviously the challenges surrounding the loss of our previous project manager have sort of made it challenging to get to everything as quickly as we would like, but we're working on it. Item 4E, the update on the MS4 violation and the elimination of the illicit discharge into the Allen Creek drain. I unfortunately can't offer any concrete updates at this point. That topic is sort of between our Water Resources Division and Gelman. They are having ongoing communications, but to my knowledge, they have not reached any sort of agreement, and negotiations are still ongoing. Item G, the Water Resources Division also has a NPDES permit application. They've had that in their hands for some time. All we can really say about that is that Gelman did submit their renewal to them on time. Until the Water Resources Division issues a new determination, Gelman can discharge under the conditions of the old permit until the new one is issued. So that's with Water Resources Division, and we're going to try to get an update on that because I know it has been sort of an outstanding item for a long period of time. But like I said, they can still discharge under the old one until a new determination is made. So.
Right.
I'd like to say a couple words about the proposed eastern area groundwater monitoring. Let me bring up that this is a portion of their proposal. On the left side here, these are the current sampling schedules and aquifers, everything. On the right side, they show which ones are going to be eliminated. And there's some of these that are being eliminated that are kind of important, like this 465 DuPont. That was a unique homeowner well that happened to be a little deeper than some of the others around it. And that's the whole reason that this portion of the plume was discovered here in the deeper aquifer. And it's still a pretty high concentration, even though it's going down. Of course, what we don't know is where is that dioxane going? So let me bring up the wells layer here. And we'll zoom in on that. Take away the 3D so we can see it better. So we're talking about this, kind of the point of the spear on this plume map that Gelman created that I traced onto Google Earth. So this is what's happened to it as of 2021 over time. And you can see there's a little blip going up here at that point in time. We didn't get the 2022 and 23 data in time. I haven't updated this yet, but this doesn't seem like a well that you would want to quit sampling. So just based on this well alone, this plan should be rejected. I'll have other comments about the rest of it, but where was this dioxin possibly going? Well, it perhaps was taking this path. It's 100, 150 feet below ground in some places, but this matches what the sampling from SIO and the recent June 2023 EGLE sampling seems to be following this underground pathway. Now, true, these aren't 100 part per billion or anything, but they're above what the EPA 1 in a million, 7-year lifetime guidelines are. In other states, this would be hair on fire issue. And to take away one of the monitoring wells that might best give everybody a heads up on what's going on, where is this dioxin going? We don't, you can't say that MW77 is a replacement for that because that's off to the east some. So, and MW55 is another one that's being, in this area here, it's a home, on a homeowner's property, so they're not, I guess the access is the problem, but this triangle area here probably should have had a monitoring well in it. It probably should have been part of the prohibition zone, but there's a little gap there. So I just want everybody to be aware of that the only way we know what's going on with the dioxin is if we have good monitoring wells. And this former homeowner well is still, my consideration, a good monitoring well. So why would the company want to take it off of their monitoring list? What was their objective for taking it off? Similarly, a lot of these other changes that they're describing, they're proposing, the justification for it isn't clearly spelled out. And we'll be commenting on that individually and as a group as we go forward. So that's all I wanted to say about that, to update everybody. But again, we have only 30 days to respond to this. And one of the things I proposed to Chris is, because he's just starting out as project director on this, that we want to help him out to get to try to bring him up to speed as much as possible of all the things that we know about it collectively, so that he can make best decisions as the what do you say, interim indefinite project manager. I told him in a response today, I said, well, interim indefinite is kind of describes my 30-year role as a citizen volunteer. And indeed, that of anybody else who's working on this forever chemical site, because we're all going to be interim in some time scale, because the dioxin is going to outlast all of us. And we should treat this site appropriately. We should have due diligence to match the scale of the problem, including the time scale. The time scale is going to outlast all of us. We should have an ongoing system to help whoever takes over for all of us come up to speed, hit the ground running, and solve this problem the best we can over how long it's going to take. And we haven't always been very good at that. And eliminating wells that give us good information is part of that. So I'll shut up at this point.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Go ahead, Beth.
I'm just wondering if Eagle can respond to that. Like, it seems very like their eyes and radar would have piped up too when they saw that.
Yeah, we're not going to respond right now. We take everybody else's comments, and then we'll respond with our response to the document as a whole. But yeah, you guys should definitely. I mean, good comment, Roger. You should definitely include that and any other, data gaps that their proposal creates and why. Make sure you got a good sound basis. Looks like you do, obviously, but appreciate it and agree with that. So, but it's premature for us to go through all that right now. Sorry.
Josh, go ahead, Mike.
On 465 DuPont, I'm having a little trouble reading this chart. So under the current status of well, across from that one, it would say no access, but there's two separate lists, which is transected by this current status of well. So I'm not sure what they're talking about. Can anybody help me on that? And if it's no access to 465, what can you tell me about that?
Mike, who were you directing that question to?
Anybody. I mean, this is on this chart. It's a Gelman chart, I presume, but we all got to use it. Can anybody tell me what the no access, what well the no access is pointing to? Is it 465?
It would seem that way based on a reading of this chart.
Right, that's what I'm looking at. And so I'm saying, can you tell me anything about what access has been explored?
Unfortunately, I cannot at this point.
Well,
just because you don't know, or because you're going to wait and respond to all of these at once?
Well, he's new. He doesn't have. He's not looking at all the same detailed reports that everybody else has been looking at. This is part of the reason I wanted to have to reinstate the CARD technical group, and as the first meeting of that, have a meeting with Chris to bring him up to speed on ongoing issues that we all know about that he might not, and to help them help Eagle, do their ongoing work. But the fact that it says no access, I didn't catch that myself. So thanks, Mike. I mean, we could go back and look at the data I don't have that up on my queued up here, but if we look at the 2023 data, the latest one we have is through June. I think would probably find there have been readings because this says up to this point, they're measuring that well quarterly. So there should have been a couple quarterly meetings already in 2023 for that well. If we looked up that data, if we had a way to magically pop that up, I'm reluctant to bring it up on my screen because I have literally 13 tabs open. I think if I pick up another one, I might crash my computer.
And I don't know that we got to bring it up now, Roger, but that's obviously something Eagle has to look into. How does Gelman explain what no access is, and is that the reason they're dropping the well?
Yeah.
You know, if they've sampled it up to this point, and now they're saying they no longer have an access agreement with the property owner, you know, and we think it's an important well, we'll go seek access again and get an extension or do what is necessary. So we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, but
we just don't have the answer at this time, I don't think, but that'll be something we'll have to scrutinize as part of the report.
But somebody at Gelman put that in.
Yeah, I get that, but there should be an explanation.
And they should have noted that. They should have said, if there was a no access issue, they should have made that a note.
Yep.
That's why it's being removed.
Yeah.
But
well, let's just say that
again,
it's another reason why we should be looking at this, this one in particular.
Yeah. But just not having access is not a good enough reason to drop a well.
Yeah.
We think it's important and we need them to seek access, then we'll make that comment. So we just
we shouldn't have to wait. We shouldn't have to wait 30 days to get an answer to that.
Well, it's part of the review. So I'm telling you.
So I'd also noticed that there's another no access just on this screen, MW55, and I'm not sure what that's about either.
Yeah.
No, that one is indeed a no access. The homeowner wanted to not have his well monitored anymore. That's what I understand. Is that what you think too, Josh?
Yeah, that's what I think. But again, if we think the data is necessary and have to compel access, then that's what we'll have to, comment on. But we'll have to look at each of those individually and look at, like I said, look at the data, scrutinize it, make sure it's an important well. It's an important well. So.
All right. Thank you, Josh. Any other questions or remarks on this? Before we move on to old business, I want to note that during our meeting with Phil Roos, the new director of Eagle, we invited him to attend today. He intended to, and I just didn't get the detailed information about this meeting to him in a timely fashion. So it's entirely my fault that he's not here to introduce himself. I think he will drop into a subsequent meeting. So I apologize to everybody for dropping the ball on that. Okay, moving on to old business. Patty, do you have any updates?
Just one. We did sample the Sentinel wells last week. I don't have the data back yet. So by the next meeting, we should have more results.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is Rita here today?
No.
She and Vince had a change in plans, and they're up north still.
Okay, so we're going to skip the Yale Superfund update unless there's somebody else here to speak on that. Seeing no one. So Kathy Knoll was unable to attend today. I don't believe there is an update on the intervener case, but Yusuf, do you have any information on that?
Hi, everyone. I do not have any updates at this time, unfortunately, but thanks for the great meeting so far.
All righty, thank you. Mike, do you have any updates from your township?
Last I understood, Tetra Tech had gone in. There were 2 or 3 of of the residences, they were unable to sample a couple of them because they couldn't remove the hoses to the bibs, which ought to be a lesson to everybody. Don't leave your hose on so damn long you can't get it off. But that aside, they went back and they've done some sampling, and we would expect that the sampling should be completed soon, unless Patty has something else to offer, and we should be getting a report relatively soon on results.
And that's all I have too, Mike. I reached out to the lab this morning. I think their intention was to combine all of the results before they sent the report out. So I'll have an update for you later today, I think.
Great, thanks. The other thing I forgot to say is I think there were a couple of the wells that came in with a pH that didn't meet the testing requirements. So they went back, Tetra Tech went back and retested them after a pH adjustment. So we should be getting results on those too.
Okay, thank you. I see no hands up or for comments or questions, so I'm going to move on to should we seek funding for the drinking water well testing program?
I'll be covering this in my update in more detail.
Okay.
But it's basically because of these new hits over the last few years in Scioto Township and Ann Arbor Township. It's time for the polluter to pay for all sampling of homeowner wells. They've reverted back to using homeowner wells as sampling for dioxane because they don't have enough of their own monitoring wells. So they at least should pay for all homeowner well sampling. Homeowner wells are not the best way to sample for dioxane because people are using the water all the time. You can't do static water level readings properly. But it's all we have because we don't have enough monitoring wells, because Gelman's been dragging their feet on putting in enough monitoring wells all these years, just like they did originally when they discharged their effluent from their plant into online treatment ponds. They never monitored for what happened to that effluent once it got into their online treatment ponds. They never had monitoring wells around their treatment ponds at the time, and they ended up using business and homeowner drinking water wells when it was first discovered to find out where the dioxin had gone to. And we're back to that same flawed way of finding out where the dioxin is. So as a first step, Gelman should be required to pay for all homeowner well sampling, whether the homeowner wants a well sampled or the county health department or Eagle wants to do a series of sampling. The polluter should be paying for all those samples because it's their dioxin in our waters of the state. I'll go into I'll be showing some more visuals on this in my update.
Thank you. I just want to note that that was a topic that we touched on when we met with Phil Roos from Eagle. Any further questions or comments on this item? I don't believe there's a KOC update. Kathy Knowles.
Did James go to that meeting, trustee meeting, or does James have an update?
I do not at this time.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I need to figure out what's going on over there.
And item G is again Kathy Knowles. We really missed her today. Patty, are you a member of the water focus group? Or maybe she's not listening. All right.
Jack, the next one is that the bylaws did get approved. So we addended, what we wanted to do on that. It was approved via email vote of the eligible voters.
Thank you so much. And under that, new set of bylaws, we're going to expand the executive board. So I think that that all comes up at the October meeting, doesn't it?
Well, we need somebody to, I mean, if it's just gonna be the same slate of those of us, that's kind of easy. If we're gonna change any of us, that needs to be done soon. If we need to take nominations at some point, I was wondering if there was somebody that would volunteer. I've got that under Roger's topic. If we have anyone that wants to chair that election, because a lot of it's email, a lot of it's maybe asking or seeking out. We need 2 other members at large, but maybe a new secretary too, if somebody's interested. If not, I'll continue, but I'm going to count on the other board members more to do these kind of things, like take votes, do other stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So I don't know if there's anyone interested in chairing the election of officers that takes place in October. Otherwise, we just don't have an election. We haven't had an election every year either. We can skip it and do it. It's up to you guys.
Well, I think that we need to do something regarding the additional positions on the executive board.
We need more people involved.
That might as well.
Some people that aren't going to age out like some of us.
Or live out of the area like some of us. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't want to change it. So if it doesn't get done, then it doesn't get done.
Alrighty.
I'm sorry.
That's not a good
Attitude.
example to set for everybody else working on this.
I'm
for
sorry.
CARD not to be able to step up and have some people working. So I would like to see everybody who has a camera to turn on their camera and raise your hand if you're willing to help out. Now I know James, I would like to tap you for some of this stuff. Heather, how long are you going to be a doctoral student? Let's see who else we got. Who's Tony? Tony, do I know you, Tony?
No, you don't know me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, tell us what's your situation.
I just got a test kit for a property that we put a offer in on North Wagner Road, and I'm taking it over in about a half an hour to test the well there and drop it back off at ATS. And it'll probably be, it's the main contingency we have on the property right now.
How far on North Wagner?
955, right on the corner of Pratt. So
okay.
It looked like there was more well trouble on the east side of that, a little farther down the road.
So far, yeah. I live just north on the curve on Wagner.
Oh, okay.
Toward
and you still live there. That's the other thing we'd like to ask. Are people, Beth, did you move out of the area because of that?
Oh, no, because, it's such a great area. And especially during COVID, we could, especially when they're working on the roundabout there, Miller, we could walk all the way down Wagner. And of course, we walk all the way back Park Ridge, almost to Maple, and we met neighbors there that we never had got a chance to meet before. So I'm going to be working on trying to get more of that neighborhood involved, because they're the ones that are right now most directly affected. We should be tapping those people. And
is there a well in the Botsford? Is there a well in the Botsford Preserve across the street?
There used to be. That's city property now. That's a city park.
Oh,
so there might be a well there sometime in the future. And of course, that's where the stream is that might have been the harbinger of why this pathway exists. Because when the glaciers melted, there was probably runoff that found that's a convenient way to get to the new path of the Huron River. And as the glacier till filled in, that pathway is still there, 100, 150 feet below ground.
And someone informed me that if wells become contaminated, that Paul is responsible for hooking things up to city water, but that's how far away?
Yeah, that happened here in this whole Evergreen neighborhood here. This was Scioto Township property, part of Scioto Township. But when these wells got to 2 parts per billion, back when Michigan's cleanup standard was 3 parts per billion, the company, actually the company's insurance company, had to pay for hookup to water, but not necessarily to sewer. And even the line from the tap to the house sometimes had to be paid for by the homeowner. And of course, these people got annexed to the city where they get to pay 15 to 17 mils property tax instead of 1 mil property tax at the time. You know, so who's to say this might not be city property someday if we don't stop this dioxin, get rid of the dioxin where there's high concentrations, and keep it below, you know, some acceptable level. And 7.2 is not an acceptable level according to most of the states who value water more than Michigan does. So it's complicated, but we need an all hands on deck to deal with this problem. So I hope your well test works out, and I hope you move there, and I hope you're interested in helping out this group.
My wife and I would be interested, and we love the house, but it is a major concern. And I think there's no record on that well, so it's probably really an old well.
Well, it might be good that it's an old well because they tend to be shallower. Like my well's a little shallower. And sometimes the shallower wells haven't tested positive yet in that direction. What's your background, just if I may ask quickly?
We're moving from California. I partially grew up here. I lived here for 30 years and moved to California for the last 30 years, restaurant business. So I'm not really a scientist of any kind, but my wife and I would be more than happy to probably help out on something on this. It sounds like you do need bodies.
Yeah, right. Make sure that Beth has your last name and contact information, and we'll touch base afterward.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thanks for the info.
Thank you, Chris, Tony. Anybody else want to weigh in on volunteering to help CARD maintain its existence? I see Jeff's got his hand up. Mike has his hand up.
Let me see what these 2 hands up are about. Go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I'm willing to formalize my relationship with CARD in some way. I feel like I should be doing more to help out. I don't know what it would be, but you know, at some point I'd like to step up and do a little more. We're a little flux right now. I got one kid starting his senior year at U of M and one kid starting her freshman year at Kalamazoo College tomorrow. And so, you know, I got a week or so to shake things out, and then I maybe can get more involved. So I got to read through the bylaws again. I didn't even respond to that. I think I am a voting member because I really try not to miss the meetings. But I don't know. I'll put myself out there as trying to help out.
Thanks. And you got a little hiatus before you have to worry about grandkids, right?
That is our assumption.
All right. So I'll take that as a volunteer for the additional spot on the executive board. Go ahead, Mike.
In response to Tony and his test, I don't know if he's familiar with the limitations of the tests that the county performs versus 522, which EPA and Ann Arbor Township and Scioto Township uses. So perhaps you guys could include that in your discussion.
Yeah, he said ATS, Ann Arbor Technical Services, and I think theirs is, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is tighter than the states, but not as tight as the 522 method, not as detailed.
Okay. Go ahead, James.
All right, Roger, I'm saying a dangerous thing. I'd be happy to serve on the board. I think I'd like to talk to you in terms of what level of responsibilities are, because I'm spread somewhat rather thin these days. But I'd be willing to, and we can talk a little bit more about that. That being said, Jack, I had my hand up because there was something I mentioned a moment ago, and I'd like to clarify that when we move to the next, before we move to the next item on the agenda.
Go ahead.
Oh, and that was just regarding the KFC discussion. It would be helpful from someone from South Township to clarify a little bit more, just in terms of what I mentioned in terms of the minutes. That project was denied by received a recommendation of denial by the Planning Commission. That does not mean that the Board of Trustees can turn around and approve the project. However, in many municipalities, most of them, it's kind of you're in the doghouse when you appear before the Board of Trustees, and you get a recommendation now by your Planning Commission. So it was, Kathy had mentioned that would be a meeting on the 29th. I went to look at the minutes of the meeting. I may look at the agenda, excuse me, of the meeting of the 29th of August. I did not see it on the agenda, nor that of the 15th. It may be coming up, I'm not aware, but it would be helpful if someone from the township would be able to provide more information, but I just don't have that firsthand. So please forgive my confusion there a moment ago.
I'll be talking to Kathy in the next couple of days about this meeting. And so I will ask her to send out information to CARD-Corps regarding any upcoming hearing on KOC.
Thank you.
All right.
And James, you could email the board yourself as an interested citizen and mention that you've brought this up at CARD, and that might spur more of whatever you need from the board. Thanks.
Thank you.
All righty then. Moving on. Is Josie or Heather here to talk about the survey?
Heather is, and then I'll talk for Josie, maybe.
Okay, go ahead, Heather.
Okay, sir. Hi, everyone. Doctoral candidate here out in Nebraska, actually Connecticut. Sorry for the confusion. I'm coming along pretty well with my doctoral proposal, which is a community survey to characterize contamination, 1,4-dioxide contamination in a community setting. I am halfway through the institutional review board proposal, and I'm happy to share that with you. I just need to get back to my professor and make sure that that's okay to share drafts of an IRB proposal before it goes to the IRB. I have determined, in researching the scope of how you develop a community survey, it's about a 2 to 5 year process. And I've been advised that if I ever want to graduate, that I should probably at least truncate and put a smaller scope on that paper, on that community survey. So for many of you in the science world, there's many different types of validation of a survey tool. So my goal would be to do the first step of a validation, which is called a face validation, as opposed to something more specific like a criterion validation or a content validation. So those things, so just to define it, a face validation says, in getting advisors' input, does the survey seem to measure what it was intending to measure? So that's called face validity or validity, and that's what I'm aiming for. So in that process, over the next couple months, I'm going to be actually developing the survey, because in an extensive literature search, I am not finding good environmental health assessment surveys that are already psychometrically tested that would actually get at the sense and characterize the community's involvement in environmental health. So to that end, you probably get a little bit of recognition for moving forward with a community survey, because it doesn't look like there's been a whole lot done in the environmental health realm, and asking the community how they want to respond to contamination. So that's kind of an interesting find through the literature search. I will be, and I would like, again, more volunteers, but I really need CARD's input from a variety of people, whether you play the role of resident or you're a scientist. It doesn't really matter. I need as much preliminary input on the design of the survey as possible, so it's not just an ivory tower exercise. Would be super. I believe Beth has my email, my phone number. Beth, permission to send that out to the membership. If I get permission to attach the whole proposal, I certainly will. I'm still working on the methods section, which is, scientific mumbo jumbo, but the basis and all the research that went into why this project might be really helpful to people. So I think that's that. Just the action items, just to be clear on that. Sending out my information to the CARD membership when I have a draft survey, and I probably won't have one until maybe November is my guess. Working diligently, and then the actual intervention for my credits, which doesn't really matter, but my intervention will be 60 days of getting input from January through February. Once the tool is set and I have input from people, it's going to go back out to people in a number of states, but CARD certainly will have an opportunity to respond. And then I'll be asking the raters, the reviewers, to answer some core questions on the usefulness of the tool. Does it seem like it would be provides a framework? Does it answer the questions that you want answered? And that's the formal intervention, is a 60-day period of feedback from that. Okay, so two sets of feedback. One is in developing it, and then two in actually testing it. So that's that on the survey. I also am working on a thought piece, and thank you to the people who are here who went to the focus group meeting in July as I went through town. Very interesting discussions, and appreciated everyone's time. I spoke with my professor, and for one of my credits courses, I'm going to be exploring the role of leadership, or what next leadership should we put forth in the translational research agenda, meaning as you guys develop CARD, it's apropos because you're looking for new leaders. What are the roles that leaders at the local level, at the state level, at the national level, what roles should they be taking on to move forward with mitigation and prevention of 1,4-dioxane contamination? So that one's more of a leadership piece, but I thought it was important to write. So I'll be working on that as well. So that's the update. November, look for a survey. Hopefully I'll get it in before the next meeting. If Beth or somebody else can just let me know and remind me, because I'm so scatterbrained with literature searches. I don't come up for air much, but when I do, I just want to make sure that that draft survey can be sent around for feedback. It's so important that you guys put in your 2 cents, because it is a community survey and I don't want to miss the mark on that. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Heather, do you have a summary of what was discussed at the meeting in July that I wasn't able to attend?
I have transcripts. Really, Roger, it was, again, exploring the leadership role there and exploring what people felt should be assessed in the community. I haven't typed up all those transcripts yet, but it did culminate in me deciding that maybe there should be a thought piece on leadership. It gets more philosophical than that, and I don't want to wax poetic here on the meeting, but I'm happy to have a conversation about why we should write about leadership and dioxane. But in essence, it feels like there have been some agency gaps that you guys have experienced over the last 30 to 40 years. You've mentioned here that there's some gaps in policy or laws that really should have been there to protect people. That's a leadership issue. It's a health policy issue. So I want to ponder that a little bit. And so those focus group meetings were really helpful in just helping me understand the context of the problem.
Yeah, it affects all of us because residents are being more apt to participate in surveys and having their wells tested if they can see that there are solutions in place to resolve this problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks.
So the other person, Josie McCarthy, she's a U of M student, and about a week ago, she asked if I could distribute to our email group a survey for her on the public's views of the 1,4 contamination in our area. So it's a QR code. It's going to be a real easy one to scan and go ahead and answer. But I wanted to let you guys know that I'll be sending that around. And then Heather, when you have yours, I'll send that around as well.
Remind me again what department or school she's with.
She's undergrad honors thesis program in the environment. Her thesis focuses on understanding public views of the 1,4-dioxane groundwater contamination caused during those 1966 to 1986 and the ongoing response.
Interesting. So she's a C's student?
I don't.
Environment and whatever.
Yeah.
The old.
So. Yeah, she was very appreciative if I would send it around. So I will send that to the CARD core group. And I think you can get it to community members as well. So maybe if anyone wanted to put it on Facebook or Twitter, or, it's a nice QR code. So that'll be coming around. If you'd fill it out for her, that would be appreciated.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this item? Moving on, Jeff, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I got I know this was that Michael Moran talked about this a little bit last month's meeting. So I found out about this from the website that had come up to kind of fight this increased extraction in this area, and it's terrible how they're draining the wells. And those of us who were kind of involved in the whole Nestle thing in Mecosta County and some other areas where they're doing the same thing to our aquifers for profit are concerned about these kinds of things. And CARD is very focused on the dioxin, and rightly so, because we got our hands full with this. Obviously, it seems like every time we look the other way, that Gelman's coming back with something they want to take away, and so I don't want to. The reason I put this on the agenda was there are things that may or may not affect what's happening here with the dioxin in our county. And I just want to make sure that CARD is in a position to kind of
You're mute.
Oh,
Jeff.
sorry. Yeah, my computer told me something else, and it muted me while I was telling me I was almost out of battery here. So I hope CARD has a lot of expertise around this table. A lot of people come to these meetings. We had almost 30 people right now in the meeting. And I just wonder if there's a way that we can have a little tiny bit on our agenda where there are other water issues that we might want to be involved in through a social networking way or in any other way, that it gets out to the CARD group and the people that we all know, and they are involved in commenting on this, especially when there's some sort of formal public comment period. And I didn't find out about this until the formal public comment period was closed effectively. And so, I would have liked to have comment for what it's worth. And I just wonder if CARD could have keep like a watchdog on other groundwater issues in our region, specifically in Washtenaw County, that we could chime in on if need be. That's all. And I know there's this Ann Arbor Water Quality Group and so on. And if Kathy was here, I'd ask her a couple questions about how that's functioning. But I just wonder if CARD has any interest in participating in comments on things that are directly outside of our dioxin concerns. So that's all. I just wanted to bring that up, and that was my excuse to bring that up. Thank you.
That's good. Before my comments, I just want to say I think I discovered your role for CARD, Jeff.
Oh, what's that, Roger?
What you just mentioned. To think
well,
how does this relate to other problems that water issues and such in the area, because CARD does have some expertise that overlaps. By the way, am I pointing at the right place here for this?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were there was a conversation about increasing the pump and treat in certain areas, Jack, when we were in the sessions, and there was this talk of, well, groundwater is tricky, and if we pump too much, it's going to change the flow and it might swirl things, this and that. And so because these are all, it's all part of our same groundwater system. I know there's different aquifers out there, but I just wonder if we are keeping an eye on other matters that might affect this, adversely affect what's happening with us. I mean, it is on the other side of everything we're concerned about, and yet there it is, and it affects homeowners' wells and so on. So I don't know how many of these opportunities there are going to be in the future, but I just want to make sure we're involved in these sorts of things.
Great. Let's go to Mike.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. I didn't ask to be on the agenda to discuss that problem because we've got a lot of issues on 1,4-dioxane and a long agenda, and it's not really directly related. But I think the suggestion that we at least keep an eye on other water issues so that they've been identified, if not explored, by the full group probably is useful. Insofar as we can say at this time, this is another thing that disturbed my vacation significantly this last couple of weeks, because a number of wells around this gravel mine have been drawn down, and even after a few of the wells were the screen levels were changed by 10 feet, within a month it was down below those. So these are significant problems at this point in time. The township board is having a special meeting to review legal opinion on Wednesday, so I don't want to go into anything more about this at this point in time, but this is a very serious problem. We, in this particular mining operation, we had a conditional use permit. So this was not one that we had ignored entirely. It was a sale of an existing pit that was causing no problems whatever over a long period of time. But new people came in and significantly increased the volume of material being removed. And so we ultimately did as I said, a conditional use permit. Will be well, how shall I say? We're investigating whether a number of issues in the conditional requirements in the conditional use permit have been violated, and what action we should be taking on those. But since it's Wednesday, I won't comment anymore at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Beth, you had your hand up for a minute. Okay. I would point out, I think that this is kind of outside the scope of CARD's area of interest. I fully support helping other groups that are dealing with water issues, but we really have quite a full agenda just with the plume, and certainly plenty of work to go around among our officers. I would like to keep an eye on other water issues, but I wonder whether we should dilute our efforts by getting into things that are not really directly connected to dioxin. Go ahead, Beth. You mute.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going to say, was that if anyone ever wants to just pass along information, water related, they you can send stuff to the CARD core group. That's I think 150 of us, people that do attend meetings, that are involved. And if nobody's interested, they don't have to read it. Roger and I have to approve those emails, so it would come through us, and if Roger feels it's not appropriate, he could go ahead and not approve it. But something like this, I mean, it is good for people to comment. We all live around the area of this gravel pit, and this is happening all over the country now with other reservoirs being drained and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's just my input, is anyone can send something to the CARD core email group, and then we either approve it or don't approve it.
And equally important, we do have some institutional experience in organizing it and addressing issues that we could try to help teach other groups, but I'm not sure if we should take it upon ourselves as our task. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I largely agree with all of that, and that's why I said I asked to put it on the agenda. On the other hand, on this one, they are currently withdrawing between 2 and 2.4 million gallons of water a day, and have requested that Eagle grant them a permit to double the amount that they're taking out, even in the face of these well drawdowns. And insofar as it might relate to our problems here, is this significant volume of drawdowns here and amount of water is being taken out may change the direction of the plume movement. I don't know that. I'm not qualified to answer that at all. It could be, as I said, very distracting to us, but the value I think it has is just say, look, this is going on also. So those of you who do have the expertise that could say either this will, might or likely would not affect our 1,4-dioxane problem could weigh in. So it's a tough issue here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, James.
I understand CARD members' concerns about, I think for lack of a better term, mission creep. But I think what Michael said a moment ago was important. I think for the time being, we should very least monitor what's going on and possibly be prepared for future action if necessary. I'm not saying it is for now, but let's keep an eye on it. I think it should be part of the agenda.
Thank you. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, and we're all in this together in terms of water issues. At SRSW, we have a saying, the old saying, think globally, but act locally. And sometimes the local community, the local interest groups need to talk to one another and see where their overlaps are. And as somebody said, help with how did we get to this point? How can we help somebody else do their due diligence in dealing with their problem? And who's to say where the next gravel pit's going to be?
Okay.
There are gravel pits in Scioto Township.
Indeed. Thank you. Any further comments on this item? Seeing no hands, I'm going to turn this over to the chair for his update. Roger, you're mute.
I forgot to unmute. There we go. So I was saying I had a lot of slides to go over here, but I'll try to get through them as quickly as I can. So we talked about the new Eagle director, Chris. How do you say your last name, Chris? Svoboda? I'm going to make sure I pronounce it.
It's Svoboda.
Just a second. We got too many phones going here. But welcome, and again, we're CARD stands ready to help you with transition to this interim ongoing position that you have. And whoever takes over after you, when and if that happens, you're still going to have a role. So whatever briefing we do is not going to be lost. So I'd like to have a briefing with you sometime soon, and to perhaps reconstitute the CARD technical group. And I can spot a few people on the screen who would like to be part of that. And some people who aren't here at this meeting to be part of that. And it could be done on Zoom. It could be one meeting or a couple meetings. And the meeting to talk about that later in the screen here. But we did talk with the new EGLE director, and I think Jack has the better set of notes on this, because he actually had some bullet points that we covered in the meeting with the new EGLE director, Phil Roos. Jack, do you have those 4 points in front of you?
I do, actually. So we had a really good full discussion over the course of an hour, and I summarized it at the end with just 4 basic asks. The first ask that we had was that we wanted to improve data handling and reporting, including, Roger's concern that it's difficult to manage the data that we do get from various sources because there isn't a uniform format when reporting such as an address, and we also emphasized the fact that the previous EGLE director had talked about updating the database program that they use. This is antiquated software that probably needs some attention. So it was our first, data was our first point. The second one was that we asked that the state work to increase monitoring and testing and require the polluter to pay for the testing that's done by the townships, the county, and the state. There's I think a 2016 consent judgment between the polluter and the state that actually notes that the state has the authority to seek additional testing when it's deemed necessary. So the third ask we had was that while EGLE is constrained in what it can do because of the state of our environmental laws and regulations, we do have a consent judgment, and we would hope that EGLE would be aggressive in enforcing the terms in the consent judgment. There's plenty there, and we just need to make sure that the polluter is doing everything that they promised to do. And then the fourth thing that we asked for was that the state be an aggressive partner with the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner in enforcing the Allen Creek discharge permit violation matter. That just seems to be out there, with the Water Resources Commissioner pointing at the state and the state pointing at the Water Resources Commissioner. And we would really like to see some progress on that. So those were the 4 basic issues. The new director also noted that his department needs qualified employees. Like everybody, they're struggling to fill positions because the economy is really quite hot. And at this point in time, having good environmentally minded people fill those positions that will persist over time, they're state civil service positions. So that, the next Republican governor can't just come in and wipe out all of the people that were hired during this good period. We want to make sure that we have highly qualified, environmentally minded people applying for those jobs. I look forward to working with Phil Roos in the future, and I think that Roger came away with a similar feeling about this guy being a good sign.
Yeah, it was all good. The fact that he even had a meeting with us as quickly as he did, and over the weekend, specifically yesterday, we had 2 email discussions, 2 email threads. And that's just a really good sign. During the meeting with him, I also brought up the issue of that I've been dealing with and learning about in my role as a tech venture catalyst here for 15 years in my other career, helping with the entrepreneurial community, and the role of AI as a tool to help people be more productive, not to take over their jobs, but to help them be more productive. And I've even used that recently to clean up the data and to summarize meetings and things like that. We have a transcript. You can have an AI tool summarize what it thinks the results of the meeting are, and then you can go in and adjust it as need be. Of course, you have to do your due diligence to make sure that all the information that it comes back with is accurate, so that bad information doesn't linger out there. So I pitched that as an idea. It'd be a good time for maybe EGLE to start using some of those tools internally, so that as new people come in and there's a lot of work to be done, there's a lot of routine things to be done, maybe some of that can be done with the help of tools that exist out there that can be trusted. And so I kind of like to see that as an attitude within EGLE and other state and government departments, because that means we can do more with the same amount of taxes. And it also provide inspiration to the younger people coming into the field. When I first got involved working with local governments in my career, it was a time when government service was a thing to be revered. That government servants were that they did things to help the whole community. And now that we have tools to help with that, I think we can attract the best people in government to do the work of the people. So that's one of my pitches. But let me go to another item here. So this is the major thing that happened, other than in the last couple of years, was the homeowner sampling that EGLE did on top of what SIO did in the prior 2 years. So these are the statistics for how many homeowner wells were sampled and how many detections there were. Of course, everybody knows by now that EGLE's sampling method can only detect down to 0.5 parts per billion. And where the SIO used the method 522, EPA method 522, they can detect down to 0.12 parts per billion. And here are the individual results of that. Here's SIO's homeowner well sampling, where the white dots are all the locations sampled that turned out non-detect, and the yellow bullets are where dioxin was detected above 0.12 part per billion. And then EGLE went back in June of 2023 and sampled these locations. Getting back to the SIO samples, or this is EGLE sampling again. These are where they ended up finding the hits. The orange and the blue are where it was non-detect. And then there's one more screen here I want to show, just the hits. Turns out that some of these orange hits that SIO had were resampled, and they ended up being non-detect when Eagle resampled them because their method isn't as rigorous. And so it's about 40% of the wells that SIO found were missed as having dioxin when Eagle tested it. And I think that's one of the things we talked to Phil Roos about, was that Eagle should be using the best method so we can get the best solution. If you can have a heads up on where the dioxin already is and where it might be going, you have a better chance of solving the problem than if you use a method that can't detect where the dioxin is. So along those lines, and because of these, what's going on here, this is clearly another plume of dioxin that's headed straight north, perhaps from the core site or perhaps from the Evergreen area. We don't know because there's not enough monitoring. And again, to use the sparse homeowner wells is not necessarily the best way to find that pathway. And getting back to the resolution with these points suggested by Dan Bicknell, Gelman should be required to fund homeowner well sampling. And these are the points that are covered. It should be anybody within 1,000 feet of existing dioxin hit should be able to ask through the county or through Eagle to have their well tested using the best method 522, and that data can be shared and funneled back to Eagle to a central unified database so that everybody knows where the dioxin is and may be going. And as Jack pointed out in our review with Phil Roos, there is a clause in the prior consent judgment that allows Eagle to ask for something like this, and we should be pursuing that as a goal. Now we need a team to draft the resolution. So I'm looking on the screen of people who might have written whereas and resolve clauses in their work or in their in the work they've been doing with the environment. And I could probably spot 5 or 6 people who can do that better than I can. So I want people to volunteer now to write a CARD resolution to ask for this right now. I see Jeff pondering this. I think he would be good. Mike Moran, I'm sure you've had opportunities to draft languages for whereases, and Kathy Griswold as well. So can I count on 3 or 4 of you to get together and take these points? And I have some whereases that I've used AI to pull from past resolutions of all levels of government that relate to this, that you could draw on for examples, and put together a proposal from CARD that we could vote on and send to Eagle to make it formalized that this should be happening. So I'm asking people to comment now or in the chat or afterward to, let's get this rolling this month. Let's whip something out, get it voted on. It can be done in parallel with expanding the CARD board and officials. So I'll leave it at that point for now.
Roger.
Maybe break and let people comment right now before we go on. And by the way, and remember, this is the reason we need that, is that this is already happening for 2 or 3 years, and it's going to continue happening. So I'll stop and pause my update and have Jack call on people. Thanks.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what the time frame was for this. I'm certainly willing to be a part of that team. But I've got 2 other lawsuits right at this moment that are extremely active and are going to require significant input to about the middle of this month. So depending on timing, I'm available, and I'm available in any case, but I'll be less available up to about September 15th.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
This resolution is for CARD members to vote on. Do you see it then going to the local governmental entities before it is sent to the state?
Good question. I think the government entities are stakeholders in CARD, so they should have their inputs. And it's up to the local government entities to weigh in with their own resolutions to support this or not. I'm sure SIA would like to have it supported. I'm sure Ann Arbor Township would like to have it supported. City of Ann Arbor, yeah, they don't have so many wells, but they might want to know where the doxing is.
Right.
Where it gets to Barton Pond.
Oh, okay. And then I'm wondering, would the next step be a bill introduced by local representatives and possibly our local senators to move this along, or do you think that Eagle would do it without an actual bill passed directing them to do it?
That's above my pay grade.
Oh, okay. I'll ask some questions next time I see one of the senators then.
I would think that if we pass a resolution and send it to Eagle, that we should copy our local representatives on that message to Eagle.
Oh, okay. That's a good plan.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, as usual, Kathy asked some good questions. Somewhat that I was going to ask. So when the group does if CARD passes forms and passes a resolution like this, and it goes off to Eagle, that's sort of considered what under the law? Is that some sort of formal request by a citizens group to a government entity, or like what is the weight of a resolution from CARD going to Eagle, or need it go through a more formal channel? I mean, it's pretty formal to create a resolution and hopefully pass it on. Does that carry more weight than what we're doing here, where we have some Eagle folks in the room? We say, hey, this is really how it's got to be. And so by formalizing it, then we're giving them the opportunity to say yay or nay to our entreaty. Is that what I see happening here?
I think that we have a very favorable director of the department, and there are limits to what staff at Eagle can accomplish. But I think that certainly the director of Eagle has a direct route to the governor, and it's a good route to express our preferences. Go ahead, James.
Thanks, Jack. In answer to your request, Roger, and to people willing to serve on this committee to work on this, I'd be happy to be involved in this. That being said, I maybe not as much as Mike, but certainly I have a lot on my plate right now, and I don't think I can take on too much more before mid-October. In terms of taking a leadership role with respect to this. I'd be happy to participate, but not take a leadership role. But the major reason why I chose to comment here is that a short while back, CARD sent a resolution to our elected officials in those legislature to push for polluter pay law in the state. I can tell you that Jeff Irwin and Jason Morgan are crafting legislation right now that would not only reinstate, but change the parameters in terms of what's happening potentially with polluters pay. I don't have a timetable when that's going to be introduced, but it is certainly in the works. We'll see what happens in terms of the governor's priorities and other priorities in the legislature, but this is something to watch, but keep that in mind in terms of background. I need to leave early, but thank you for a great meeting.
Thank you, James. Go ahead, Kathy.
I recommend that we use the term polluter responsibility rather than polluter pay. That's the term I'm hearing, and it sounds a little more palatable. Also, I'd like to give the Ann Arbor City Environmental Commission the opportunity to take a look at this resolution and possibly adopt one of their own. And lastly, I see that Brian Nagel is on, and I'm wondering if he has any recommendations regarding this process.
It's something I can't get into at this point in time.
Oh, okay. Just in terms of process, whether this is the optimal process to move forward.
I have to look at the document that's at issue.
So, okay. All
Thank
right. We'll make sure you're included. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
This is an answer to where this question started, and that is, what is the status of requests like that? And in my mind, it's like us, including the local jurisdictions and CARD, adopting resolutions to bring in the EPA to help us resolve this. I think it's something we should pursue.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that we use this process for the MS4 permitting, and I believe that was very effective at moving it forward. We haven't resolved it yet, but we did get some attention.
Good points. All righty. Anything else on this item? I'm going to return it to Roger.
Okay, getting back to my update, I've got a few more minutes here. These are the new highs so far from the latest data set that I was able to get my hands on. And I got to tell you that, some of this data you haven't seen yet because it's not in the EGLE database. I have it because I directly get Gelman's monthly summaries. It's not quite the same monthly summary that EGLE uses to recreate its database, the Gelman database, because it's in this format. It's got the well name, month, day, year, 2-digit year, date, sequence number of testing. So in order to do this kind of analysis, I have to parse it out to get the well out and then be able to summarize based on prior data. How does this new reading compare with the previous highs? And then I show what the percent over that previous high is. So you can see here that some of these wells are going up 6, 7, 12%, 8%, 30% higher than it was before. So this gives you some indication of the rate of increase on new well hits. And of course, when I get around to it, when I get clean data, I plot these on Google Earth for our the Google Earth mashups and the Tableau public mashups to show interactively where the doxing has been, where it's going over time. But these are the latest highs for 2023. So this might relate some to Gelman's proposal to quit sampling wells. Fortunately, I don't think there's any in this list that they're dropping from the sampling because that would be irresponsible. But this kind of trend was also foretold by previous CARD meetings and documents. So these are links to those previous warnings about this happening. I'll leave it up to people to follow these links at their leisure when they go back, and you can take the agenda that's shared and click on the link in the agenda. I'll show you where that is. Even on the agenda, there's a link here under for the last many months when I've been doing chair notes, I always put a link in under the agenda item. And if you click on that, you get to the same file that we're looking at here. And you can go to this slide of the update, and you can click on these links, and you can follow, you can see what links I'm talking about. And this is just a summary again of the Gelman's proposed Eastern Area Monitoring Plan. These are some of the problems that we have with it. So when we send our comments in, trying to figure out the best way for us as a group to peruse these concerns and organize them with documentation. So this is another kind of subcommittee process where we can share this with either the whole CARD Corps or maybe a select group. I need some input on this from everybody, what they think is best, in order to help everybody respond individually or as a group to this new Eastern Area Groundwater Monitoring Plan. We've already discussed a few of the points here. Like one of the points I should add right now is the that we just talked about was the 465 DuPont.
Hey, Roger, while there's a slight pause, I also just want to mention, I see in this slide you've got the date of September 20th, but we will be accepting comments.
That's supposed to be a 30th.
Okay,
That was my
great.
typo. Good catch. Thanks.
Just wanted to make sure nobody got the idea that it was sooner than it had to be.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, sometimes my fingers don't do what I tell it to do. And it's actually, as you said, maybe October 1st or something, or October 2nd in reality, right? Because it's a weekend.
That's right. The 29th, the date that we'd set was a Friday.
Oh, it's the 29th. Okay.
Yep. And we're going to accept comments. We said until midnight at that time. But like I said, if something comes in on Saturday or Sunday, you know, we'll get it in there when
So
we
the 29th,
start
30th, 30th.
Because we're going to get everything together on.
So maybe
like
October 1, right?
Yep, that's right. So officially September 29th. Unofficially, anything that comes in over the weekend, we'll take a look at.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to be doing is going back and looking at the data and looking at previous instances where wells were shut down prematurely that could have been providing ongoing data. And if I can come up with some examples of where maybe we should have that data now, knowing what we know now. So I'm going to be looking at that. I'm going to be looking at well histories that have been missed, or that will have been missed if we use their proposed criteria. It's important that we I don't know why my bullet's not showing up here. Maybe I have to do this again here.
Roger, I'm not a hydrogeologist, but it
there we go.
might help to also help the layperson understand the data. It seems like there's a couple things happening. That one, you see rates going up, and I don't know if that's linearly, exponentially, and that's a concern. So different wells may be serving different purposes. Ones that are on the perimeter are really monitoring plume expansion. Ones that are trying to trace whether it's aquifer invasion. those serve a different purpose. So it might help to, in your mind, at least, or somewhere you could translate that information to people who are decision makers might help. That's my 2 cents. Again, I'm not a hydrologist and I don't know anything about the geophysics of it, but what struck me was that the 465 DuPont, you really need that for historical reasons, because if dioxane comes and goes, if it's not a linear progression or it's not a linear dissipation, then you also want to be able to show that it's not necessarily a linear anything.
Right.
If it waves and it cycles. So what is that related to? Is it water table levels? Is the other land mix uses that you were describing, is that coming into play?
All good points. I'm not a hydrogeologist either, even though I sometimes pretend to be one. Because this site has surprised people so much over the years.
I would think you want to keep it, but make some formal comments about why you want to keep it. It's like it's historical, and if it comes back, it's important to know that that's the nature of dioxane. It doesn't just suddenly dissipate, or if it does, at what rate, and if it's coming back, why is it coming back? Those are important scientific questions.
Yeah, and it's a difference between the goals of the community and of EGLE and the goals of the polluter. The goal of the polluter is to skirt as close as they can to what's the law says and save money, where the goal of the community is to let's get our water clean, let's restore the aquifers. And so there's a gap between the goals, and that gets back to the what do you say, Kathy, polluter responsibility law? I think that's a good term to use, to restore the polluter responsibility and have what the original thinking of government was. These companies are just groups of citizens, and all citizens are assumed to be responsible, that they will do the responsible thing. And we have a problem here because the responsible thing was kind of missed for whatever reason. There's some loose ends that I won't bother talking about today, but one of them is kind of irritating because on the latest Gelman map that shows all the wells on the map, they indicate that certain wells were plugged or abandoned. They put an asterisk by that on the key for the map. Now, that implies that there's some database that they have that the rest of us don't, that lists, there's an actual list. Here's the wells that have been abandoned or plugged, and maybe it should be, is it abandoned or is it plugged? I mean, they're not necessarily the same thing. There's some wells that have been abandoned and have not been plugged, and those could be a problem because the casing is still there. Anyway, so let's. I want to investigate where those asterisks came from. What's the basis for those? Anyway, that's one of the loose ends that's going on. What else do I got here? I went through and compared Gelman's access database, the one that we've been using, and now I have to change this to 06/2023 because we just found out about that late last month. And the EGLE access data sets, it says it was updated through 5/8 through May of 2023, but apparently not everything. Like, it doesn't have the same data as the access database. The access database is more up to date than EGLE's ArcGIS Rockworks map. But these are the different data set components of that EGLE Rockworks ArcGIS data set. And it's not at all clear to me how often this is going to be updated. So when people go to look at this on the EGLE's website, they should be looking at when it was last updated and what the data includes through. Let's see, this is my final thing, and that's what I always try to get back to, is to update my Google Earth matchups. Here's the current mashup is this portion of it all the way down through here. And then I've added these other things piecemeal, including all this data about this and some of the hits in Ann Arbor Township and a few of the wells that weren't located until after the data was released. But I want to have, I would like to think that I could pass this visualization creation and sharing on to whoever takes over for me. And I'm not sure how that's going to happen. I'm pitching ideas to School of Information and to the university as a whole to have the Gelman site be a study site, so they can generate a lot of dissertations and semester projects for graduate students, but doing it in a way that's ongoing, that melds closely to the goals of CARD and to whatever comes, however CARD merges in with the EPA citizens group once EPA takes over. So these are things on my mind. There's also the my Tableau public displays that show all of the hits over time. This is in a map view. And again, the size of the circle is the concentration. So if you can even see any kind of donut here at all, it's an issue. That this is just XY. We have south to north showing the surface elevation and the screen groundwater elevation. So if you go down here and play this history over time, you can see the spread of the doxing from the Gelman site in the shaded area over time to the north or to the south in some cases. And so what this doesn't have on it are these wells out here a mile away from where the edge of the plume is supposed to be. Haven't updated with the most recent data that just came through. So there'll be some dots out here. There'll be almost, there won't be any donuts. There'll just be a dot because they're all about 1 part per billion or less or thereabouts. But there's some real high hits that are going on here that, so you can kind of see where the pathway might have been from south to north. There's also one here from west to east, the same kind of thing, going from the Gelman site west towards Honey Creek and east towards the river. And again, you can play this over time and see what that looks like. These are all available on srsw.org. If you scroll down on the SRSW site, which I think is somewhere up here, there we go. Scroll down. The left side here, by the way, are links to all of the stakeholder websites that relate to the Gelman site. And then the right side are some links to important things happening. And this is the portion we're talking about here with these Tableau public visualizations. And one of the more interesting ones is to look at this, all of the samples over time on a log scale. So this is a general view of how the cleanup's gone since it was first discovered. We've got the Gelman period, we've got the Paul period, and then we've got the Danaher period. A lot of cleanup was done during the Paul period, and then it kind of tapered off. And this is all interactive. You can turn on or off any of the aquifers. You can look up certain well names. You can click on a certain well and say, what's that? And it will focus in on that one location, or in that case of a well, you can look at, scroll down and find what's going on with that one particular well.
Roger, what does the EPA, what does NURIA say about the data management and as they're doing risk assessments?
I don't know. We're not at that point yet.
Okay.
But if you project this out a few decades, are we going to get anywhere below 7.2 or 3.5 or even down to 0.35? How long is it going to take to get all of these readings below any of these levels? Some of them are already down there. But what about these other ones? Where is this dioxane? How is this going to be cleaned up? Where's it going to spread to before it gets cleaned up? Now, there is another extension to this that I haven't done yet, which is to make a dashboard out of all these 4 displays. So as you're focusing on one end, it'll show you different views of it. And that's the kind of thing that we can do now. And this is something I've been able to do for free. I don't have to pay a monthly fee to do this, but yet it's giving us better information than we can get through the normal channels. And I don't know if any decision makers are using any of this data, but I would hope that they at least know that it's there and go, visit it from time to time if they have a question, because this is all the data that we have.
Roger, I'd like to remind you that our time is running out.
Thank you, Jack, and we're done.
I didn't mean to curtail you early, but
no, but I tend to ramble on because this is kind of important,
I would never describe it as such, but yes.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you so much. This is very informative. It's easy to download from the agenda. There's a hot link, so I appreciate that you do this. I'm going to move on to the non-agenda items. Is there anything that anyone would like to bring up that wasn't on the agenda? Seeing none.
Did we take care of a volunteer to do the elections of officers?
Beth and I are working on that.
Okay, good.
She emailed me and texted me, and she will make me do what needs to be done, Roger.
Yeah, and you can. As chair, I give you authority to tap anybody on the screen to help you.
Beth doesn't ask for volunteers; she appoints them. So,
Jack won't be on the election either. He's appointed by the board, so I think he'd be a good person to help right now with reaching out, trying to vet people, see who's interested, and come up with a plan. Thanks, Jack. I'll help.
Yeah, just before we go though, are there any board members now that don't want to be elected again for one more term?
I don't think we're going to offer that.
No, you have to find a replacement. And Beth moved away before she found hers, but we still need to replace Beth at some point.
Yeah, we will release Beth as soon as she finds her own replacement.
There you go. And Beth, you should talk about how it's changed your life to be Secretary of CARD.
Yes.
It's been great. I've learned so much from a lot of you guys that are wiser than me, and on this groundwater issues and contamination issues, and it's enlightened me down here too with our contamination problems in the Cape Fear River. So I do want to get more involved with that. Our water treatment plant here actually treats for dioxane at the plant. It may be a Danaher filters or UV oxidation is how I guess they do it. But dilution is not the solution. Those high concentrations on Roger's map are going to go into the Huron, and then they're going to rapidly go to Lake Huron and contaminate all of Lake Huron and any,
Lake Erie.
or Lake Erie, that's what I meant. Yeah. So
I welcome anyone who wants to stay and chat, but we're going to conclude the meeting in its official form at this point. Our next meeting is October 3rd at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
thanks, Jack.